The cockpit hummed with the faint glow of display lights, casting pale blue shadows over Captain Liam Hayes as he adjusted the ether's heading. In the vast expanse of deep space, silence was its own language, an endless and haunting quiet just beyond the reinforced hull. He inhaled deeply, savoring the familiar rush of thrill, a feeling that had never faded even after years on the galactic frontier. "Alana, scan for anomalies," he commanded, his fingers gliding across the controls. The ship's AI came to life, her voice soft, resonant. "Scanning, Captain. All standard data points appear stable. No anomalies within a 1-parsec radius." "Thanks, Alana," he replied, though his instincts were ablaze with caution. A disquiet that felt as old as the universe itself crept into his mind, urging him to be wary. The stars flickered dimly in the distance, then a bright, unnatural arc of light split the darkness. "Alana, report." "What was that?" Liam's voice cracked through the silence, sharp and urgent. "An energy signature, Captain. It's consistent with intense gravitational interference." Her tone was as calm as ever. "Shall I adjust our course to investigate?" "Affirmative. Full defensive systems on standby." The ship angled toward the anomaly, thrusters firing as the ether approached the strange streak. His pulse hammered, anticipation tingling through him. He'd seen countless oddities out here, but something about this pull was different, almost deliberate. The closer they drew, the stronger it became, revealing a dark, uncharted planet wrapped in swirling violet clouds that seethed like storm-tossed oceans. Suspended within them, a crystalline object glowed, small, brilliant, and unmistakably otherworldly. "Alana, identify that object." "I cannot, Captain." The object emits a containment field of unknown origin. Before he could respond, the ship trembled violently. Crimson alarms flared, and Alana's voice crackled with urgency. "Unstable energy detected. Brace for impact." The cockpit spun, colors and shapes twisting wildly before his eyes. His grip tightened, body rigid against the chaos until, abruptly, all went still. The silence was shattered by her presence, a figure materializing before him, both alien and mesmerizing. She stood, statuesque and immobile, skin a luminescent silver that gleamed in the dim light like liquid metal. Wisps of shadow coiled around her form, flowing and alive. Who are you?" Liam stammered, his voice barely a whisper. "You may call me Amara," she answered, her voice echoing as if carried from some distant galaxy. Her gaze pierced through him, vast and infinite as the night sky. "And you, Captain Hayes, have ventured into my domain." "Your domain?" he repeated, pulse quickening. "I'm a researcher. I explore uncharted space. I didn't know anyone was here." "There is much you do not know." Her faint smile held both mystery and amusement. "But ignorance does not grant you permission. I've observed your approach, Captain. I permitted it." "What do you want?" The question slipped out, unbidden, almost reflexive. She regarded him as though sifting through his very essence. "What is it that you seek, Captain Hayes, out here in the endless void?" "Knowledge," he replied automatically, his voice hushed. "Understanding. The universe holds so many secrets, and you," he gestured to her, to the world that loomed beyond the ship, "are unlike anything I've ever encountered." Her expression softened, almost sorrowful. "Many have passed through my realm, Captain. Few have truly seen me. Tell me, do you fear the unknown?" Liam hesitated. "Everyone does to some extent. But fear hasn't stopped me before." A spark of interest lit her gaze, a faint glimmer of something ancient and unspoken. "And that, Captain, is what intrigues me." She drifted closer, and he felt the chill of her presence, an aura of both age and power that filled the air like a storm waiting to break. "You are unafraid of mysteries that would unmake lesser beings. You pursue the shadows others flee." Her words sent a shiver through him, yet he couldn't look away. She was a presence like none he'd ever felt, compelling, inscrutable. "Listen, Amara," he said, struggling to keep his voice steady. "I mean no harm. If you allow me to leave, I swear I'll never return." Her dark eyes seemed to shimmer, a hint of sadness threading through them. "Leave?" she murmured, almost as though testing the word. "Is that what you desire most?" Caught off guard by the intensity of her question, he faltered. I don't know," he admitted. "This place I can't seem to look away." She allowed herself a faint, ghostly smile. "Curiosity binds you to me, Captain, a curiosity that reaches beyond mere understanding. But be warned, some mysteries cannot be solved, some answers open only to greater unknowns. Do you wish to risk being consumed by such revelations?" Her words filled the space between them, heavy with a gravity he'd never experienced. For the first time he felt fear, not for his life but for his very soul. "What do you want from me?" he whispered. "Perhaps nothing," she replied, her voice like distant thunder. "Or perhaps I want everything you have to offer." The words wrapped around him, a seductive pull that tugged at his will. "You could release me," he managed, though the thought itself felt alien, almost unthinkable. "Release you?" She smiled, a sad and knowing expression. "Captain Hayes, once within my grasp there is no release. Only understanding. Only the depths beyond all knowing." In an instant the world dissolved around him, plunging him into a profound darkness. He felt himself falling, weightless, before solid ground met his feet. He stood, disoriented, in an endless hall of shadow, its obsidian floors reflecting the faint starlight overhead. Strange, unreadable symbols glowed on the walls, casting a spectral light across the chamber. And there at the center stood Amara, her gaze still fixed upon him. "Why won't you let me go?" he whispered, the question echoing in the vastness. Amara took a step closer, her voice a soft murmur. "Because, Captain, you are one of the few who dares to seek, and so I offer you the one thing you crave." She extended her hand, and he felt an irresistible force pulling him forward, into the mystery that lay within her, a mystery deeper and more dangerous than the universe itself. Liam took a halting step forward, his hand reaching tentatively toward Amara's outstretched fingers. The closer he drew to her, the more he felt the strange, magnetic pull emanating from her, a gravity beyond the physical, one that seemed to tug at his very mind, pulling him deeper into her orbit. He couldn't tear his gaze from her dark, endless eyes that held the weight of 1,000 lifetimes. It felt as though the world itself was narrowing, the vast hall folding around him until only she remained. "What is this place?" he asked, his voice barely more than a whisper. Amara tilted her head, her expression unfathomable. "This is my sanctuary, a place where only those I choose may walk. You are unique, Captain Hayes. Few ever pass the threshold of my realm. Even fewer understand its meaning." Liam swallowed, his throat dry. He wanted to ask, to demand answers, but words failed him as he stood beneath her piercing gaze. "I've traveled light years, crossed galaxies, seen countless phenomena," he finally managed. "But nothing like you. You're not just a being, are you? You're something else." A faint, unreadable smile touched her lips. "You may think of me as alien if you wish," she replied, her voice drifting like mist, "but I am far older than that. I am one of the firstborn, a memory left behind by the universe itself. I have seen stars born and die, watched civilizations rise and crumble. The tides of existence flow through me as water flows through the riverbed. Why bring me here then?" he asked, feeling the edge of desperation creep into his voice. "Why show yourself to me?" "Because, Liam," she said, a glint of something almost human in her gaze, "you are not bound by fear. You come in pursuit of knowledge, of mysteries, even when they beckon you toward annihilation. Such curiosity is rare." She stepped closer, and he could feel the chill radiating from her, the hum of her presence vibrating in his bones. His heart raced, an instinctive alarm, but he was trapped, held fast by her gaze. He could feel her probing his thoughts, her presence sifting through his memories like pages in an open book. She frowned, and he felt her retreat momentarily. "You feel trapped," she said, the statement resonating in his mind like an echo. "Your life has been a search for purpose, for something that lies beyond the mundane. Tell me, Captain, what do you truly desire?" Liam hesitated, struck by the rawness of the question. In the depths of his mind he knew the answer. "To be remembered," he said softly. "To leave a mark, to be more than just another captain in the vast, indifferent universe." Amara regarded him with a look of deep understanding. "Mortality," she mused, her voice tinged with a strange melancholy. "Such a fragile thing. And yet it drives you all. This need to be more, to transcend. But what if I could offer you a different kind of purpose?" What are you saying?" She extended her hand, and for the first time he noticed the faint, glimmering symbols etched into her skin, ancient runes that seemed to shift and dance in the dim light. "Join me, Liam," she said, her voice laced with something that felt like longing. "See the universe as I do, unbound by time, free from the chains of life and death. Become something greater than yourself." Liam's mind spun, trying to grasp the enormity of what she was suggesting. "You're offering me immortality?" "In a sense," she replied. "I am offering you the chance to step beyond the veil, to witness the hidden truths of existence, to see time and space as I do. But it will come at a cost." A shadow flickered across her expression, and for the first time, Liam saw vulnerability in her eyes. "You will lose yourself," she said quietly. "Your memories, your identity, all that you are will merge with me, becoming part of something vast and unfathomable. You will live on, but you will be changed. Irrevocably." Liam's heart thundered in his chest, torn between the thrill of discovery and the terror of surrendering everything that made him, him. He took a shaky breath, 1,000 questions crowding his mind. "And if I refuse?" Amara's gaze hardened, a flicker of disappointment passing over her face. "Then you will be permitted to leave, to continue your journey alone. You will return to the cosmos as you are, finite, bound to the fleetingness of mortal life. But know this, Captain Hayes, the mysteries you seek, the answers you crave, may never come to you again." Liam looked at her, the allure of the unknown tugging at his soul. The universe had always seemed so empty, so indifferent, until now. Now he stood on the precipice of something greater, something that could elevate him beyond the limits of human understanding. "What happens if I say yes?" he asked, his voice shaking. A soft, almost tender expression softened her face. "Then you will become as I am, boundless, timeless. We will drift through the cosmos, witnessing the birth and death of stars, the dance of galaxies, the evolution of life itself. You will be a part of all that has been and all that will ever be." She stepped closer, her hand inches from his. He could feel the vastness of her existence pouring through that small gap, a gravity that pulled at his soul, whispering promises of endless knowledge, boundless life. And then he reached out, his hand brushing against hers, feeling the strange ethereal warmth of her skin. The room around them shimmered, and suddenly he was no longer in the hall but drifting, untethered, in a vast expanse filled with swirling stars, pulsing nebulae, the cold fire of distant supernovae. Amara's voice echoed in his mind, resonant and intimate. "You are no longer alone, Liam. We are one." He felt himself stretching, dissolving, his consciousness merging with hers, expanding into an existence that defied language or thought. He glimpsed worlds beyond reckoning, the knowledge of ancient civilizations, the whispered secrets of black holes, the delicate balance of cosmic forces. But somewhere deep within, a fragment of his old self flickered, a small but stubborn sense of identity, a whisper of the man he once was. As he drifted further into her embrace, he realized that while he was no longer truly himself, he was part of something far grander, something eternal. In the last glimmer of his humanity, he felt a bittersweet satisfaction. He had found what he was searching for. And in the infinite expanse of the cosmos, Captain Liam Hayes would be remembered. Liam's consciousness floated through endless stars, his sense of self stretching thin and nebulous. He could feel Amara around him, within him, a presence as vast as the universe itself, weaving his mind into her essence. Memories, thoughts, feelings were all there, but muted, slipping further away. He could still recall the gleaming control panels of the ether, the tension of unexplored space, but these memories felt like artifacts from a life he'd read about rather than lived. "Do you feel it, Liam?" Amara's voice whispered through his thoughts, intimate and resonant, like a melody carried on the edge of a dying star's light. "I do," he replied, marveling at how his voice rippled outward, like a song lost in endless waves of space. Together, they drifted across nebulas and galaxies, soaring through cosmic storms and plunging into the gravity wells of dead stars. Time became a strange, fluid thing, flowing forward, backward, and sideways all at once. Through her, Liam could see the birth of stars, watch planets form, and witness the first glimmers of life, amorphous, flickering, filled with potential. She carried him to the birthplaces of light itself, to realms where the universe trembled with creation and destruction, where existence wove itself anew in patterns too complex for any mortal mind. But as they moved deeper into the fabric of reality, an unease grew within him, a frayed thread of doubt amid the awe. For every piece of knowledge he gained, every marvel he witnessed, a part of him faded, receding like the distant echoes of his old life. "Is this truly what I wanted?" he thought, almost afraid to let the question form. Amara sensed his hesitation, and a subtle shift rippled through her presence, a mixture of compassion and inevitability. "You are discovering what few have the courage to know. This is the path you chose, Liam." He felt her sadness, ancient and profound, like a black hole at the core of her being. There was something she wasn't telling him, a hidden truth nestled within her vast knowledge. Determined, he pushed back, reaching for that feeling, pressing against the edges of her mind. "Amara," he ventured, "what are you hiding from me?" For a moment, her presence went still, a silence as heavy as the void. When she finally responded, her voice was softer, almost hesitant. "Even for those like me, there are places of darkness, mysteries that are unyielding. You mean there are things even you don't understand? Yes. And those mysteries come with a price. She paused, her sadness deepening as if weighed down by an ancient burden. This existence, Liam, this immortality, it is not without its cost. I have lost myself countless times over the eons. Each merging, each communion with another has changed me, consumed parts of who I was, scattered my identity like stardust across the universe. Her words resonated with him, a dark mirror of the very fear gnawing at his mind. So, what happens to me? Will I just dissolve into you? Not dissolve, she assured him, though her tone was tinged with regret. You will be part of me just as I am part of those who came before you. But your consciousness, your unique self, it will fade, Liam. Slowly, like a distant star dimming over millennia. Liam recoiled, the weight of her confession settling heavily in his mind. He'd chased this encounter, surrendered to the mystery she offered, but he had never considered the cost to his very existence. Why didn't you tell me sooner? Would it have changed your choice? She sounded almost mournful. You sought answers, knowledge. You sought me. And yet, you are still clinging to what you once were. He felt his old self pushing back, a surge of rebellion rising from the core of his identity. I don't want to disappear, Amara. I don't want to lose everything that makes me, me. Amara sighed, her presence flickering, a storm cloud rolling across a vast sky. Even now, there is a part of you that desires the unknown, that aches to be part of something greater. But Liam, I can give you something precious, something rare among my kind. I can separate you. Return you to the ether as you were. Liam's thoughts stilled, a surge of hope mixing with doubt. You can? He asked, barely daring to believe it. Yes, she replied, though a heaviness weighed down her words. But if I let you go, I will remain incomplete, and you will bear the mark of this connection forever. You will carry an echo of me, a scar upon your soul. It may change you, pull you toward me across the galaxies, in dreams, in waking moments. You may never truly be free of me. He considered this, the choices branching out before him like paths across an alien world. To become part of her, to dissolve into eternity, knowing the cost to his identity, his very being. Or to return, carrying her mark like a silent echo, an eternal connection to a presence he would never fully understand. I want to go back, he whispered, his voice trembling. A long, contemplative silence followed, before Amara finally answered. Very well, Liam Hayes. You will return, but understand, you will never truly be free of me. You will carry this bond, this understanding until the end of your days. In an instant, he felt himself untethering, like an anchor pulled from the depths of an ocean. The sensations, the vastness, the endless consciousness began to recede, and the boundaries of his own mind slowly returned. Amara's presence grew distant, the last remnants of her essence brushing against his mind like a farewell. As the darkness receded, he felt the sharp, familiar weight of his own body, the metallic scent of the ether's cockpit filling his lungs. He opened his eyes, blinking against the dim light of the ship. Alarms flashed silently on the console, indicators of systems realigning, as though they too had been wrenched through an impossible journey. But he was not the same. He could feel it, the strange, lingering touch of her presence, a memory woven into his consciousness that he would never shake. He felt her still, watching him across the stars, like a shadow cast from a distant galaxy, an echo of a song he would hear for the rest of his life. He slumped back in his chair, staring into the endless expanse before him, feeling both the thrill of his return and the bittersweet ache of the bond he would carry forever. And in the quiet of the cockpit, her voice lingered, a whisper on the edge of his mind. Remember, Liam. Some mysteries are never meant to be fully understood. The ether was quiet, save for the faint hum of the engines. Liam sat motionless in the cockpit, staring out into the deep void of space. He was back, but his sense of reality felt fragile, like the brittle surface of frozen glass, a thin barrier holding back the depths of what he had just experienced. The familiarity of the control panels and the soft glow of the console lights did little to ground him. He felt like a stranger in his own skin. Captain Hayes, the ship's AI, Alana, spoke, her voice soft and even. You were unresponsive for approximately 7 minutes. I detected elevated neural activity. Are you unharmed? Liam blinked, Alana's voice pulling him from the haze. He flexed his hands, feeling the solidity of his own fingers, grounding himself in the tangible. I think so, he replied, though he knew the answer was more complicated. A part of him had returned, but another part, one that was forever altered, lingered, a ghostly presence threading through his thoughts. Alana's voice filled the quiet once more. You approached a gravitational anomaly and then, vanished from my sensors. I was unable to detect any external cause for the lapse in time. I encountered something, Liam managed, his voice tinged with awe and unease. He could still feel her, an undercurrent humming softly in his mind, the faintest pull of her presence. An entity. An intelligence, something beyond anything I've ever encountered. The AI was silent for a beat before responding. Do you wish to log this encounter for the official mission report? He hesitated. How could he explain this to anyone? How could he possibly convey the enormity of what he had seen, or the weight of the choice he'd made? He'd felt the universe stretch wide, felt its mysteries press upon his mind, and had touched the very edge of eternity. But would anyone even believe him? Would anyone understand? There were no words not for something like this. No, Alana, he finally said, his voice quiet, resigned. No logs. Just resume course. Let's get back to the colony. Yes, Captain. Alana's tone remained neutral, though there was a hint of hesitation. Course set and engines are stable. Would you like me to monitor for further anomalies? Please do, he replied, rubbing his temples. And, Alana? Keep a detailed record of everything unusual, especially anything near that gravitational anomaly. I don't want to be caught off guard again. Acknowledged, Captain. The stars stretched before him in a quiet, endless sprawl, and he felt the familiar pull of curiosity, the urge to explore. But he knew now that some parts of the universe were far vaster, far stranger, than he had ever imagined. Amara had shown him that, given him a glimpse of truths both awe-inspiring and terrifying. And now he would carry that knowledge like a scar, an invisible mark left upon his soul. Hours passed as he settled back into the rhythm of the journey, though he felt strangely adrift. Sleep was evasive. Each time he closed his eyes, he saw her face, Amara, with those endless, piercing eyes that held whole galaxies within them. The strange silence of the cockpit grew heavy, pressing against him as if even the ship itself sensed his disquiet. Finally, he surrendered to his rest quarters, hoping that perhaps sleep would grant him some semblance of peace. But as he drifted, his dreams unfurled into an endless tapestry of stars, woven with visions he couldn't escape. In his mind, he saw Amara again, her form silhouetted against a backdrop of swirling nebulas, her silvered skin aglow like molten starlight. She was not speaking, but he could feel her thoughts, her essence rippling through his consciousness, filling his dreams with flashes of worlds beyond reckoning, places where time folded upon itself, where life existed in forms beyond comprehension. In one dream he stood at the edge of an alien landscape, watching as towering crystalline structures grew and dissolved with each breath, stretching toward a sky filled with blazing violet clouds. He could feel her beside him, a faint whisper, a reminder of what he could have become. In another, he floated above an immense, dark ocean under an unfamiliar star, the waters churning with strange life forms that pulsed with iridescent light. Each wave whispered her name, each ripple beckoned him back to her, calling him into the depths. And then, amid the otherworldly images, her voice, soft, familiar, and as vast as the cosmos, broke through. You chose to return, Liam. But part of you will always belong to me. He woke with a start, his skin cold, his breathing shallow. He sat up, gripping the edge of his bunk, feeling that strange, pulsing hum in his mind, the echo of her voice fading slowly. His quarters felt foreign, claustrophobic. He could no longer tell if he was in the dream or awake, or if he was now living in a liminal space between both. He rose and made his way to the cockpit, needing the expanse of stars to ground him. As he entered, Alana's voice chimed, breaking the silence. Captain Hayes, she said, her tone both professional and somehow softer than usual. I detected a spike in your neural activity. Is everything all right? He hesitated, his hand gripping the back of his chair. I'm adjusting, Alana. I suppose I may never feel fully myself again? She didn't respond right away, and he almost laughed at the absurdity of explaining something so intangible to an AI. But Alana seemed to sense the weight of his words. Would you like me to conduct any diagnostic scans? She asked, her tone cautious. No, he replied, sinking into his chair. Just continue monitoring. As he watched the stars blur past, he noticed a subtle flickering in one of the screens, a faint, almost imperceptible glimmer that shouldn't be there. He leaned forward, adjusting the controls to bring the anomaly into focus. There, on the edge of the display, was a star cluster he didn't recognize, the colors shifting in impossible shades of violet and silver. A chill crawled up his spine. It was as if the cluster was calling to him, its gravity pulling on his mind. He could feel her there, a faint whisper of her presence woven into the starlight, a message that only he could understand. "I am here, Liam." His breath caught. He reached for the navigation controls, an instinctual part of him wanting to steer toward the anomaly, to follow that faint, haunting call. But he stopped himself, his fingers hovering over the controls. He couldn't go back, not after everything he'd sacrificed to return. Yet he knew, even as he pulled his hand away, that he would never truly escape her. She would linger there, a faint glimmer in the depths of space, her presence woven into the very stars themselves. With a weary sigh, he settled back in his seat, letting the hum of the ether carry him forward. For now he would continue his journey, charting the empty stretches of space, cataloging the wonders of the universe. But he knew that somewhere out there Amara waited, an immortal sentinel in the dark watching him, a promise of mysteries yet to come. And in his heart, in the echoes of his mind, he felt a truth as constant as starlight. He was not alone. He never would be again. Captain Liam Hayes found himself once more in the silent grip of deep space, but the silence no longer brought him the peace it once had. Each star, each distant celestial body, seemed to pulse with a presence he could no longer ignore. Amara, the immortal alien woman who had imprinted herself upon his mind, her voice echoing in the chambers of his thoughts, was with him still. She was not a memory he could shake, nor a ghost he could outrun. She was the shadow in his mind, woven into his very soul. For days he tried to return to the routine of his exploration mission, cataloging distant phenomena, mapping new sectors and listening to Alana's quiet reports. But the further he traveled from that strange, uncharted world, the louder Amara's whisper became. He'd catch himself speaking her name in moments of solitude, asking questions he knew no answer could satisfy. It was as if he'd been caught in a tether that stretched across the cosmos, binding him to her, an invisible thread that only tightened the more he pulled away. One night, as he floated in restless sleep, her voice came to him again, more vividly than ever before. "Liam," she murmured, her tone hauntingly familiar. "You cannot run from what you are now." He jolted awake, her voice resonating in his ears like a melody he couldn't shake. The stars beyond his viewport seemed to blur and stretch, and a growing certainty gripped him. He had to return. Without fully understanding why, he found his hands moving to the controls, redirecting the ship back to the sector he had so carefully avoided. Alana's voice chimed with cautious inquiry. "Captain Hayes, the coordinates you've set lead back to the gravitational anomaly we encountered previously. Protocol advises against." "Override protocol, Alana," Liam said, his voice barely above a whisper. I have to go back." There was a brief silence and then Alana's acknowledgement. The ether turned, its engines whirring to life as it plotted a course for the violet-hued world where he had met Amara. Liam felt a strange calm settle over him, as if surrendering to the call that had haunted him was the only true choice he had left. As they approached, the familiar pull of gravity distorted the stars around them, bending light and time. The planet loomed once more, veiled in its eternal violet clouds, and Liam's heart raced with both fear and exhilaration. He did not know what awaited him, but he felt a profound certainty that whatever it was, it would be final. "Prepare to enter orbit," he instructed. Alana's systems hummed in response, but there was a tension in her voice that Liam had never detected before. "Captain, I am detecting multiple anomalies. Energy spikes are growing erratic. If we proceed further, there is a high probability of irreversible system damage." Liam smiled faintly, feeling the weight of his decision settle within him. "It's all right, Alana. I knew the risks when I set course." As they descended into the planet's atmosphere, the clouds parted, and there she was, Amara, standing upon a crystalline platform that floated above the darkened landscape, her figure radiating a strange, magnetic glow. Her eyes met his through the viewport, piercing even through the thick glass, as if she could see into the very depths of him. The ether landed gently, its systems flickering with strain, and Liam stepped out, his boots touching the cold alien surface. The silence was profound, as though the entire world held its breath in anticipation. "Amara," he called out, his voice carrying over the stillness. She approached him with that same grace, her form seeming to glide over the surface, her movements like the currents of an ethereal ocean. When she spoke, her voice was softer, almost sad. "You returned despite knowing you may never leave," she said, studying him with those endless, dark eyes. "I couldn't escape you," he replied, unable to mask the truth. "No matter how far I went, you were there, calling to me. I don't know if you did it on purpose or if I've simply changed. But I had to see you again." Her gaze softened, and for a moment, a shadow of vulnerability passed over her ageless face. You are the first in countless lifetimes to look upon me as you do, not as a creature to be feared, but as a mystery to be understood. You chose knowledge over fear. In doing so you changed. He took a step closer, feeling an invisible energy between them, like a magnetic field binding them together. Then why do I feel that I have lost myself? He asked, his voice barely a whisper. She tilted her head, studying him intently. Because the universe you once knew is no longer your home, Liam. You belong now to something larger. A wave of clarity swept over him, and he felt an ache in his heart, a quiet surrender. He had felt it from the moment he had first looked into her eyes, seen the eternity within them. He had already made his choice, even if he hadn't understood it until now. Then take me with you, he said, a resolve settling into his voice. I want to know everything. Show me what lies beyond the stars, beyond what I can see. Amara reached out, her hand brushing against his cheek, and in that touch he felt lifetimes, entire worlds unfurling within him. He saw the birth and death of stars, civilizations rising and falling, and the unyielding pulse of the cosmos stretching into infinity. Her gaze was both gentle and infinite as she leaned closer, her presence overwhelming. There is no turning back, she murmured. Once you step beyond the veil, you are bound to it forever. With a nod, he accepted, a quiet understanding that this would be his end, and his beginning. She took his hand, and in that moment the world dissolved, melting into a boundless expanse of light and shadow, a tapestry woven of stars and mysteries that stretched beyond comprehension. As he surrendered himself to the vastness, he felt his old self fading, his consciousness merging with something far greater, a collective memory of all that had been and all that would ever be. He was no longer Captain Liam Hayes. He was a part of the eternal, a fragment of the infinite, woven into the cosmic fabric alongside her. In his final moments of individual awareness, he felt her voice, soft as a whisper in the depths of his soul. You are home, Liam. And then there was silence, not the silence of absence but of unity, an unending peace. His story, like all stories, had returned to the stars, to the endless mystery that he had sought his entire life.